thanks everyone. We really appreciate all of you being consistent with the 3 days. That's genuinely a delight to have hosting all of you on all the 3 days. This is the mini NFT non-fungible token bootcamp, master bootcamp. This is the 3rd day. I hope in the first 2 days you've got the context setting done. You have already also learned how to create and mint sellable NFTs in the second part of it. We've uploaded that on the Masters Union YouTube platform. So please feel free to go ahead, and if in case you've missed out on any of the first 2 parts, go ahead and take a look at it. We've got the veteran Jason Fernandes again as a part of the 3rd and the last part. And towards the end of the session, we've got a little bit of surprise for all of you. So we'd really love to have all of you towards the end as well. And of course, on that particular note, over to you, Jason. We're really looking forward. I think last session also we had major takeaways that how we're able to see that it's really critical to join these Discord groups, Twitter groups, because marketing yourself and your NFT is equally important. And we're really looking forward to the 3rd day, where you said that we'll be looking at the buyer's perspective and how can we make and flip the NFT. So we're really excited. I'll let you spearhead the 3rd day. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nidra. Again, thanks to Masters Union for putting this event on. I appreciate all of you all for attending. So as I mentioned, we are on day 3, which is of the class Learn to Create and Mint Sellable NFTs. And yeah, this is just sort of a continuation of what we did a couple of days ago. And let's get started. So if you remember last time, I made this particular item and I put it in a collection. It's really important to remember, though, that by putting it in a collection, you're not immediately able to sell it. You have to first initialize your account on OpenC, and that requires gas fees. So depending on what exchange you're on, some of you guys might be using WazirX, some of you guys might be using CoinDCX, KuCoin, CoinSwitch Cuba is another popular exchange, so is XREX. What you need to do is essentially first buy Ethereum and ensure that you have some Ethereum in your account. And then what you need to do is use a withdraw function, which will be the same in pretty much every exchange platform that you use. Have a very, very similar sort of procedure. You would basically use a withdraw function, and then you would send Ethereum to the wallet address in your MetaMask. So if you remember, I'm going to just show you that for a second. Cool. So if you remember, we set up this wallet last time in MetaMask. Just going to jump in. And so you see that we have, you're on the Ethereum mainnet, which is super important. And then this is your wallet address. This is your Ethereum wallet address. And if you copy this and you paste that as your withdraw to wallet address, that's how you withdraw funds. So it's a good idea to maybe withdraw, if you're getting started, maybe withdraw somewhere around maybe $500 in Ethereum. And yeah, it's an investment. It's the same as really pretty much anything that you have to do that does require some degree of investment. But, it's a really fun thing to get involved in, and the possibilities are really endless. So I find that it's worth experimenting. But yeah, definitely, do it if you feel it will benefit you. So you copy this particular Ethereum wallet address, and then you use that as your withdraw address and withdraw some Ethereum to it. So that's sort of one of the main things that you have to do when you're setting up your account. It's really important that you do that, because before you list your NFTs for sale, you'll find that you need to oftentimes, first you'll have to fill your collection up with the various NFTs. And then before you let those NFTs go on sale, you have to first initialize your OpenC account. And that can cost, depending on gas fees, it can cost usually a couple $100s, is anywhere from 100, sometimes less than that even. But that's how much it costs to sort of initialize your account. And gas fees essentially depend on things like, it's Ethereum. That's what they mean when they say gas fees. It is measured in GWEI, which is sort of the smallest component of Ethereum. And that sort of varies based on network congestion, how crowded the sort of blockchain is, how much activity is happening at that particular time. So something to keep in mind. And you want to make sure you're aware of this, because you really want to make sure you're aware of this, because the last thing that you want to do is have a launch date for your NFTs and just be ready to launch. And let's say you, for example, put your gas fees to initialize, but for some reason the gas fees jump up, and then you can essentially your transactions in queue then until gas fees drop back down, and that particular offer that you gave is worth somebody's time to actually conduct that transaction. So that's generally something to be aware of sort of before you list your NFTs for sale. So it's like any other enterprise where you do have to do quite a significant amount of marketing and lead up to the release of your NFTs. But if you do everything sort of at the right time and sort of follow some basic steps, you should have a good chance of making a fair amount on your NFTs. So here are some of the things that we sort of think about when we're first making our NFT, right? So is our NFT like a unique avatar? Like, well, most of these NFTs have some sort of avatar projects. So for example, that could be an illustration. So Bored Ape Yacht Club, this is a great example of illustration. So where you have sort of like multiple copies of a very similar image with different sort of properties, where it might be a mustache, it might be a sunglass, it might be hairstyle. And those particular properties have different degrees of rarity associated with it, right? So that would be like a great example of, an illustration-based NFT. Another is sort of 3D rendering. A good example of that is Meebits. That sort of is where you have like 3D art and 3D rendering. Seems to be very, very popular when it comes to NFTs. Finally, you have like pixel art. So if you look at CryptoPunks would be considered pixel art because they basically look like little boxes, very, very, very pixelated versions of an image. And this is just sort of going over what seems to be conventionally sold as NFTs today, right? So that includes, again, illustrations like Bored Ape Yacht Club, 3D renderings like Meebits, pixel arts like CryptoPunks. Another is sort of, where you have some sort of like doodle, right? So the doodle is very, very, very famous, sort of just random, and it's up to the person's interpretation on what that is. That's a different kind of art as well, and that there is an equivalent in the NFT world. And then, of course, you have sort of dedicated topics where you have sort of hobby-based NFTs. So, for example, there's ZenFit Garden Society. Another is the example I gave you with the running shoes. So, for example, the way that works is that you have different shoes for sale, and each shoe is an NFT, and you purchase the shoe, and that costs anywhere from that could cost up to like $1,000, $2,000. But once you buy that shoe, based on the shoe that you have, you can actually earn for every step that you take, right? So basically, you get paid. The whole utility of that NFT is it's like a workout NFT. So you own that NFT, and then you start working out, and you earn based on how much you work out and how often you go walking and how much distance you cover with that shoe. So for example, if you buy a cheaper shoe, your per hourly rate that you earn might be at a much lower number, right? So that's kind of how people are choosing these NFTs in the first place. The first thing is are you interested in that particular subject? So if you're a workout guy, if you're somebody that likes to keep fit, these shoes NFTs were extremely popular. One of the reasons I didn't get into it, although I read about it, I thought it was really interesting. One of the reasons I didn't get into it is because when I actually looked at how the token was constructed, essentially the way it worked is that you were being paid from future people's purchases of NFTs. So it's almost in that sense like a Ponzi scheme, because you don't get paid unless future people are buying more shoes, and then you just keep and that can't go on forever, right? You're going to hit a saturation point at some point where no more people want to buy shoes, and there's quite a few people that are expecting to get paid, and at that point the amount that they get paid is fairly less. Same thing about like pizza lovers. So you have rare pizzas. These are just examples of art that is built around a community, right? So there's a whole bunch of other options, too many to list, but here are some examples to take a look at. Take a look at cryptoslam.io, which kind of shows you some of the examples of different NFTs and kind of how they've been categorized. And then, of course, OpenC I mentioned, and Rarity Tools I'm going to get into a little bit later in this conversation when we start talking about like from a buyer's perspective, what are some of the things that they look for. So let's jump into utility. So I mentioned this last time very briefly. I mentioned sort of NFT utility and utility-based NFTs, and actually one of the questions I had was what is utility, right? So utility is the same whether it's a fungible token or a non-fungible token. The utility is what is the use of having that NFT? What can I do with that NFT? right? And that's when it comes to a non-fungible token. With a fungible token, again, it's what can I do with that particular token? But it's really the same concept, because whether you have an NFT or, even a fungible token, the value of that comes from sort of what you can do with it, right? So it all boils down rather to NFT utility. Anything that sort of any NFT that wants to be successful really has to give a lot of thought to what is the utility and what are they offering their buyers, right? So what are some examples of this? Let me just jump into here. So one is sort of where the token is a ticket. So a great example of this is VCon, which is Gary V. Gary V is an influencer in the NFT space, extremely well known. He runs a conference called VCon. So essentially, buying his NFTs, the NFTs that he issues, are essentially quasi tickets to his conference, because you can use those NFTs as a ticket. Similarly, Digital Pratik is an India-based entrepreneur, fairly well known in the NFT community. Bumped into him at NFT Kochi. By the way, there are quite a few NFT conferences as well. NFT Kochi was fantastic. There was NFT and Namaste NFT that happened, I think, a month ago in Bangalore, which I was also at. So these are great places to sort of go there, get discovered, really breathe in the NFT community and become part of the community, because a lot of this depends on sort of becoming part of a community and becoming known within that community. Like any art, like sort of any art-based situation, it really matters who you are as a person and whether somebody wants to buy your particular artwork. For example, Gary Vee has said that one of the main reasons he buys art and NFT art is because he likes the person specifically. So some of that, definitely plays a role. Another is sort of special community access. So for example, Collab Land, one of the things that they're doing is they're selling these NFTs, and that NFT entitles the owners of those NFTs to have a particular role within their Discord community. So, for example, you can buy an NFT perhaps that, you can sell an NFT perhaps that makes the buyer of that NFT some sort of admin within a group that you have, right? So that's another model for what can you attach in terms of utility to your NFT to make it worth somebody's time to purchase, right? Another is our 3D models, right? One of the reasons 3D models are super useful, very, very popular in the NFT community, is that they are usable within the metaverse, right? So what people will do is they'll create NFTs. Like a great example is Faith Connection. Faith Connection is a company we were advising very closely. Faith Connection, they launched with a fashion-based NFT. And essentially, if you bought that NFT, you could actually wear it in the metaverse. So the same way people walk around the real world and they're wearing like designer brands like Gucci, Prada, Faith Connection, things like that, that same need that people have in the real world to flex and to, let people know that they have something that other people don't, that carries on, almost one-to-one within the metaverse. So for example, if you're the kind of guy that wears designer clothing and flaunts designer clothing in the real world, you will likely stay that kind of person in the metaverse. So how do you get designer clothing in the metaverse? Well, you have to buy them, right? So Faith Connection, for example, did this great thing where you can actually buy the digital version of the NFT version of the garment in addition to the actual garment. So not only can you wear that NFT in the real world, you can also wear it in the metaverse. So oftentimes NFTs are effectively models or basically resources within the metaverse. So for example, there are game metaverses that will create game resources like axes, like magic potions, like swords, and all these things are individual NFTs, right? So this is another reason why somebody might want to buy an NFT. Another is obviously high resolution images. So this is pretty standard. If you have a really good artwork, if somebody wants to be able to hang that up or to print a high resolution version, they would need a high resolution version. So oftentimes people will take photographs, guys that let's say photographers, they might take photographs, they might put a thumbnail version of that as a cover art. And then in order to actually own that particular image, the high quality image, you actually have to buy the NFT. Another is sort of commercial licensing. So of course, Bored Ape Yacht Club, it comes down to sort of community. Bored Ape Yacht Club is a very exclusive community. I mentioned them last class, where I sort of talked about the importance of community within the NFT space. And essentially joining Bored Ape Yacht Club is like joining, even if you're not into yachts, for example, it's like joining a very, very high place investment club where everybody in there, for the most part, is something else, is somebody who is, interested in investing, they're interested in the NFT space, right? So that's some of the main points. Now I'm just going to jump into how to market your NFTs, right? So these are some things that I wanted to go over in terms of marketing an NFT. I mentioned this last time. It's really, really important to market your NFT in the same way that you might market art in general, right? So one thing is obviously social media. Social media is your friend. You can go on Instagram and essentially have some sort of teaser where you put out, let's say, 1 out of every 5 NFTs that you release, you put out a thumbnail version of that, and that's essentially to build hype. And it's important to use the relevant hashtags like NFTs, maybe tag NFT influencers specifically in your tweets just to get their attention, or to go to their go to their page, their Twitter page, either follow them and or interact on their Twitter page a lot, and then of course that might bring some attention to you and your art, especially if your Twitter account is branded that way. That's also a really good point, is that you want to make sure that your Twitter account is branded for selling NFTs. So you might want to use hashtags like NFTs, NFT art, things like that. So when somebody hits upon your Twitter profile, they know exactly who you are and what you're trying to do. So that's Instagram happens to be one. Twitter is also super important. There are a massive amount of NFT influencers on Twitter, and that's sort of one of the best places to go out and actually look for information in terms of how do I engage with this community a bit more, right? So some of the popular influencers, Digital Art Chick, Elliot Trades, Alexis Ohanian, for example. So definitely check out these, see who is following them, follow those people, and then build your own Twitter up and your brand as essentially somebody who puts out a lot of NFT, who is an NFT artist, right? So branding is hugely important, especially when you're pushing it on social media like Instagram, Twitter. Also, it's not on here, but TikTok happens to be really helpful. So, for example, if you did, let's say, like a really small TikTok video that featured your artwork, there's always a chance that could go viral and bring you a lot of attention. Well, again, in order to do that, you really have to think about the post that you're putting out and what are the things that people would be interested in seeing, and how do you sort of get them interested in checking out what you're trying to do. So some of them is some of the places to look at is Discord, right? Discord is I mentioned Discord last time. Discord is hugely important when you're marketing your NFTs, right? So some of the main, a lot of the Discord servers are actually private. If you're familiar with Discord, kind of know how it goes and how to join. But some of the ones that you want to look at is this one, the NFT Discord, the OpenC Discord. When I'm hovering over, you'll be able to see the link to the particular Discord. So you can certainly check that right now. That basically will bring it up. Same thing with NFT Hideout. That's another place where a lot of people are talking about their NFTs. Again, it's the same as any other thing. You don't want to just jump on there and throw information out there about your own NFT and sort of dominate the conversation. You do want to be respectful. You want to maintain etiquette, especially Discord etiquette, Telegram etiquette. But oftentimes you do have an option to advertise and to promote your piece, in which case absolutely take it. That's, as an NFT artist, it's your job to try to promote and to try to get what you need done. And as long as you stay within the bounds of what's acceptable and what is polite, don't let anybody stop you from trying everything to get attention, right? So that includes, for example, Telegram channels where you might jump in, and that you might jump into Telegram channels specific to NFTs, and say, hey, this is an NFT that we're doing. This is sort of like something that you might be interested in. Then, of course, hope for the best. Again, don't spam. You want to be careful about that. Then there's finally paid advertising. So, for example, you could pay Instagram influencers to do a shout out, to do an Instagram reel. You'll notice that paying an influencer to do like an actual post is more expensive than paying them to do a reel. And sometimes reels, because of the the fact that they only last 24 hours or a certain finite amount of time. Sometimes reels can be more effective because they feed that feeling of scarcity, right? So you could choose then whether you want to go for and then of course you have other options. For example, you can go to a top tier NFT influencer, which is going to cost you more money, and then buy a shout out or influencer reel. Or you can go to multiple sort of mid tier NFT Twitter and Instagram profiles and pay for shout outs. And it might again be worth it depending on how much you're selling. Now, keep in mind, one of the things that you definitely want to remember is your buyer will have to pay gas fees in order to mint your NFT. So you might only sell your NFT for $50, but it might take them $100 to mint that. So definitely ensure that you're taking that into consideration as well. So let's just jump into why somebody would buy and why people would buy an NFT in the first place, right? So the most basic reason is, people buy it because of the aesthetics. The same way people buy NFT, real art, right? So when it comes to real art, one of the reasons people buy real art, and it's unfortunate that this is one of the conditions, but it really is. A lot of people buy art solely to fill up empty spaces in their house. So, for example, they might buy a sculpture that's a certain dimension, not because that sculpture particularly speaks to them, but because it fits really nicely in their display showcase, which they're looking for something to highlight over there. That really doesn't exist in the same way that it doesn't exist in the NFT world in the same way it exists in the real world. In the NFT world, you might have an NFT in your wallet. Keep in mind that wallets, are public, right? So somebody could actually, basically browse your wallet and see all the NFTs you purchased. And so that's why, I mentioned that NFTs are known as like the new digital flex. My friend Evan was mentioning that when he was in Brazil, I believe he has a CryptoPunk or an extremely rare NFT. And when people realized that he had that, he became almost a mini celebrity in and of itself, just purely by virtue of owning these other NFTs that people knew were extremely rare and therefore highly valuable. So it is to an extent very similar to like having a fancy car driving down the street, because people sometimes buy NFTs because they want other people to recognize that they bought those NFTs. And why would they do that? Like, to some extent, let's say, for example, you put out an NFT that is an AIDS awareness NFT, and let's say 10% of those of the royalties go to fund AIDS cure efforts, for example. So somebody who's an AIDS activist might buy your NFT. He doesn't care about the artwork. What he cares about is the fact that 10% of the royalty is going to, let's say, AIDS research, and he probably also cares that other people realize that he purchased an NFT, and therefore it brands him as an AIDS supporter, or rather AIDS elimination supporter, right? So people buy NFTs to tell other people something about themselves, like something about their interests and something about what makes them tick. So that's something to really remember, is that the more that your art speaks to somebody and makes them feel like it makes them feel like they are a part of a community, the more likely you're going to be successful selling these NFTs. And that's why it really, really helps to connect yourself to a larger community, and try to figure out what is your brand hoping to achieve, what you're putting out, what is the message? Is it just about the design aspect of the art? Do you have a deeper message in terms of what you're trying to teach people, what you're trying to what you're trying to put out into the world as your particular personality? Like, what are you sending out? So these are some things that you really have to think about when you're creating an NFT. Now, there's of course emotional resonance, right? So an NFT, you might make a piece of art that has a certain relevance to somebody that was not the relevance that you had remotely thought of when you first made it. And this happens to artists all the time. So for example, they might make a painting about, let's say, a field, and the person who buys it might actually buy it because it represents freedom to him, for example, right? There's not a really good understanding about what people choose, what speaks to people. You never really know, and so sometimes it's just a question of putting out something that you think speaks to the most amount of people, that speaks to some sort of shared experience. Another I mentioned is social value. So some people are buying NFTs because it's hot right now. So they're buying NFTs because they want to join a club of people that own NFTs. Now there is still that cachet around NFT sales, because NFTs are still very, very early on. There is still a certain cachet around owning an NFT, flipping an NFT. It's still considered somewhat, cutting edge. The same way maybe owning Bitcoin was considered cutting edge, 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? Now, almost anybody has some amount of Bitcoin in their portfolio, and if they don't, they probably should. Though that's not financial advice. Finally, scarcity. Scarcity is another thing that people look at when they want to buy NFTs. Now, this is something I'm going to jump into practically immediately, in terms of how do people figure out the scarcity and what they want to buy, and what are things that will likely go up. So I'm just going to jump into that right now. So one of the tools that people use is this website called Rarity Tools. So Rarity Tools allows you, again, to list your own project right here. And then you can actually give them all the information that they need. Your project's official Twitter, your project's official Discord. Again, it's really important. I mentioned Discord before. It's one thing to join other Discord groups. Oftentimes, if you're doing an NFT collection yourself, particularly if it's a collection, you definitely want to have your own Discord server where people can come in there, have discussions. You might want to have your own Telegram where people can come in there and have discussions. Community is one of the most important things that people look at when they want to look at what NFTs to purchase. So it becomes something that your community and why somebody would want to join it becomes a really important question when people are looking at it. So what is the status of your project? Are the NFTs minted, for example? So these are some of the questions that people will ask. What's the blockchain that is built on? What is the contract address? What is token standard? So you notice when I was doing on Rarible, I had the option to mint an ERC 1155 token. So you could put that in, or you could even just say, I don't know. And there's various different pieces of information that you can share with them, and then they may choose to list your NFT collection. But it's really important to then look at what people are looking at, right? One of the things people look at is volume. The biggest problem about NFTs is probably one of their biggest strengths, right? Non-fungible tokens means they're not fungible with relation to other tokens. Well, the difference between a non-fungible token and a fungible token is oftentimes liquidity. With a fungible token, you can, especially if that token is being traded live on an exchange, you can come in there at any time. And if you have, let's say, $50 of Ethereum, you can trade it for however many $50 of Ethereum is worth. The problem about replacing that $50 of Ethereum with an NFT that you purchased is that you can't always be assured that you can sell that NFT if you need those funds. So if you need those funds for some reason and you're not ready, then it's not liquid at all, right? So this is why when you're converting Ethereum to an NFT, you're taking basically a fungible token and you're flipping it, you're exchanging it for a non-fungible token. Now that non-fungible token could go up in price. But you also have to consider liquidity, because if there's not enough buyers on the other side, then basically the price is pretty much useless, right? So one of the things we look at is volume, right? So let's take a look at volume for a second. Okay, so here we go. So it shows you right here that this particular the Bored Ape Yacht Club has a 7-day volume of almost 7,000 Ethereum. It's really, really, really a significant number, right? And then you look at the total volume, that's 628,000 Ethereum. And again, this is because this is like the Bored Ape Yacht Club is one of the biggest NFT collections that exists out there. So that's kind of one of the reasons why you see it as so prominent. Then you see obviously 6,420 owners, and you see, hey, this is an extremely popular NFT collection rather. And so there's a whole bunch of information that you can learn here. So for example, you can take a look at the various different traits. These are the traits, for example, the background, where some of them are aquamarine, some of them are army green, blue, gray, new pump blue. And then fur, some of them have different color fur, trippy fur, hats. And this gives you an idea of how rare this particular NFT is. Scarcity really, really matters, particularly if it has a correlation between scarcity and price. There is a correlation rather between scarcity and price. But yeah, people figure out the scarcity by looking at sort of how rare is a certain variation, right? And then also if you have a lot of volume, right? So if you have scarcity is important, but then you also check the volume of transactions. So now this would be considered really good volume, but then let's look at, something that's not so good. Let's look at all collections. And let's look at something like unusual whales. So if you look at the 7-day volume for unusual whales, it's 0.35 Ethereum, which is less than a third of Ethereum. Right now, and I think Ethereum is hovering around $1,000. So 0.35 Ethereum is about $300, which means over the last 7 days, only $300 of this token of these whales have either been bought or sold, which basically means it's practically a dead project. You can also see the 7-day average price, extremely low, 0.02 Ethereum, but it's still owned by 33,000 people. You can learn a bit more about the kind of traits, look at the charts. By the way, this is super important, right? So you look at the sales floor. The sales floor is the lowest, what's known as the floor price for an NFT is the lowest price it's being sold at currently. So let me go into OpenC and give you an idea of what that looks like. So if you look at the stats and you look at activity, so this shows you all of the sales, but you can actually add listings. So for example, let's say you wanted to take a look at Bored Ape Yacht Club. Yeah, so for example, Bored Ape Yacht Club, that you can now look at, you can now select this based off of, for example, the kind of collections, which is we've already seen that, the quantity. Trying to find the stats about this particular. Let's look at rankings. Actually, activity is really useful because what it shows you is how often a particular NFT is being sold. So one of the things you want to look at when you're buying an NFT is how often a new NFT is being minted from that collection, and then the flip side of that, how often are they being successfully sold and for what price? So if you look at, for example, this is sales data, and it shows you that this NFT was bought, essentially transferred from here to here 2 minutes ago, and now a minute ago and a minute ago. And so you can kind of get an idea for what people are buying, now, especially if you start seeing a lot of the same kind. So now you see, for example, there's 2 carnivores. I'm going to assume it's the same person. Yeah, so it's actually the same person selling to the same person, which is why that is repeated. Let's look at Zed Run. And you can actually start looking at, for example, price history over the last, let's say, 60 days. In this case, it's really there's only one little piece of information over here. But you can also see, hold on. Yeah, you can also see the sale. So for example, this was a sale. This was an airdrop. So that was like 3 months ago, which means basically this NFT, there's almost nothing happening with this collection. So the last airdrop was like 3 months ago. And then there was a transfer 13 hours ago, another transfer 13 hours ago, and then a sale. So they probably, actually they transferred, this was transferred from this username to this username 3 minutes ago. And then it was sold to that, to that same wallet about 3 minutes ago as well. So this gives you an idea of some of the things that people look at. Now let's go back to unusual whales, right? So you could kind of see over time how unusual whales evolve. So they start off at a floor price over here, which is at $34 approximately. They jumped up to $85, 59, 103, 105. And then on this day, Sunday, April 17th, it was $139. But now you can kind of see it dropped steeply, dropped even more. Then it came up a little bit, but now it's still at 66, which is even lower than it was, pretty much on the second day it was launched. Then you can kind of see it had another spike over here on June 2nd, and pretty much now it's trading, much lower, about $59 according to you. Now you can actually see how the daily sales volume has evolved. Now you can also see how many whales, how many collectors are there. So for example, an NFT collection that is massively increasing the number of collectors at a time will generally be more valuable, because that means that essentially people are, you're getting more and more people joining the basically joining the party in a short amount of time. And then of course you can kind of see the value that was spent. So this gives you a lot of data, and here you go, sales. So sales scatter. So you can kind of see, how these sales happen. This is also really instructive, by the way, because a lot of people tend to think that once they put out an NFT, like it just sells. Like they put out 100 NFTs, and you might sell like one a day, or two a day, or three a day. When in reality, it's more like you might sell two one day. And then sell, like for example, this day was really good for these guys. They sold quite a few. Then there was almost no sales in between over here. And then there was another few sales here. So it's really kind of a spattering of sales. And that's something to remember, because, especially if you're trying to build an entire business around this, you want to know how these sales occur, and how you can expect funds to come in. There's another NFT collection. And you can kind of see these look like these are actually doing pretty well. So for example, you have 10 Ethereum of volume on a 7-day period. The total volume is 10 Ethereum, which implies that this is only about 7 days old. So this is probably a fairly new collection. Already has 688 orders, right? So super useful. Then you can actually kind of take a look at the trade count, backgrounds, bodies. These are the sort of things to look at. In fact, you can also sort by that. So if you wanted to see these blueberry eyes, you'll see all of these as they load up will have similar eyes. Boom, they all have similar eyes. So that kind of shows you how you can sort these, and that's why that optional field actually exists. The field that says properties that I mentioned last time. So another thing people look at while we're here, let's jump to this, is NFT Catcher. So this is another place where people sort of go to discover NFTs and to discover NFT drops. So these are brand new NFTs that haven't yet dropped. These are past drops. Here we go. So this is for June 29th. I think that was today. So these are all the NFT drops that happened today. So you can actually take a look at it. Let's visit one. This is Founder Bricks. The mint starts in 6 hours. These are some of what they look like. So a lot of these NFTs, for example, have their own website. So this is the entire website, explains to you about the NFT collection, how many are minted, how you do it, like kind of all the details generally on their website. Take a look at some others, and this gives you an idea kind of how to construct your own. When you're actually making this, you realize the kind of artwork that works, the kind of design that is considered conventional. So for example, June 28th, mint day, I believe that was yesterday. And so these are probably already minted. Actually, just a second. If I'm looking at this, yeah, if I'm looking at this was actually minted today. So they probably minted it a day late. One of the reasons probably is, could be anything. Could be that they hadn't initialized their account. They still had to do that. So it's always better to like initialize your account long before you actually need that account to start selling. But this gives you a great idea of kind of how they structure it. Another thing that people look at is this is NFT Bank. This gives you a whole bunch of information, although I'm not sure. I believe this might be a pay service. Just double check. Yeah, so this gives you an idea of pretty much how these NFTs are set up, and kind of what is the data that people look at, and how do you find out data. So let's look at this collection, this more loot collection. The current flow is 0.0004. It's always good to see, like, what you look at is, let's say for example, you go to OpenC and you find, let's take a look at it at one, for example, at one collection. So let's explore. And here we go, the top collections over the last 24 hours. Let's give it a second. Yeah, so here's where you actually see the price of these NFTs. So you'll notice that this one is 2.72, this is 2.74, 2.76, 2.86, 2.87, 2.89, 2.9, 2.9, 2.9. So basically, these are slowly going up in price as they progress. That's kind of how it's set up. Sometimes what you'll see is like let's say 5 NFTs minted around the same time, and one might be 2.5, the next one might be 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. So then if you're buying that NFT to flip, you might buy the 2.5, immediately relist it for 3, and then when somebody else hits upon this, they'll see 3, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, and they'll obviously go for the cheapest one. So if you just drop the price just slightly lower than the next one, you can immediately flip it for profit. And this is what some people are doing. By the way, super important that you don't spend any more money on NFTs than you can afford to lose, because a lot of people have lost a lot of money on NFTs because in the long enough time frame, a vast majority of these NFTs will likely go to zero on a long enough time frame, and we've seen that for multiple collections. So if you look at, they have like a long tail where it sort of blows up initially, and then it just sort of slides down and then tends to zero, in perpetuity. So on a long enough time frame, a lot of these are going to go to zero. So if you're going to buy as a speculative asset, hoping that it pops up, then you have to make sure that that you sell it at the right time. You're not holding it forever, and you're conscious of the price and the change in price. So again, there's a whole bunch of data here on this particular collection. So let's go back to NFT Bank. So NFT Bank is really cool because they track the blue chips NFTs. Then you look at the ape index, which shows you sort of the ape related NFTs and their values, and then you have the non-ape index. So that's kind of how they're divided, which tells you a bit again about the importance of Bored Ape Yacht Club and what they've done to the NFT market. So it shows you again trade volume, market index, things like that. So again, you can see the MEBITs. I mentioned MEBITs earlier. You can notice that their previous floor and current floor are the same, 0% change. It's probably right now not a good investment. But you look at Mutant Ape Yacht Club, their previous was 17.5, it's now at 18. In this case, it's actually gone down 10.8, 10.5. Clone has gone from 11.11 to 11.24, which is 1.2 up. So right now, if you notice, the profits are very meager. In this particular case, you bought Artist Seasons, that's an 8% profit. Not bad at all. But of course, there are quite a few that have actually gone down. VFriends, this I would assume is something to do with Gary V. I think that is the case, and you see that they do have some 24-hour volume. Again, it's only like 1.64K, but this is kind of how you're able to look into this. So you see the leaderboard tells you like how many of these people have, like, what are the NFTs they have. So this particular guy has 3 wallets. This is when it comes to crypto voxels, I think. Yeah, so this shows you kind of this person's NFTs. So these are all this person's NFTs. And you can also see, for example, their total inventory value. And it's there, they've sort of broken it up into official Mooncats, cyber brokers, loot prints, crypto voxels, and then countries from liquidlands.io. You can kind of see how their portfolio is broken up. And then again, how their portfolio is done overall in general. So you have this data, how much they spend, the return of investment, in inventory value, and that particular revenue. So there's quite a bit of data that you can glean from this. You can see these transactions. Another really important tool that's super useful is Icy Tools. So Icy Tools, this is actually a paid service. I think it costs about $300. There you go. It costs $300 to unlock. I've had friends that have said that they were really happy with Icy Tools. Again, it comes down to like how much you want to get into it. Is it worth for you spending $300 and giving it a shot? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. So it's something that you definitely want to think about. And then you can actually take a look at what's trending. Trending is also a great way to discover sort of how to go about selling an NFT. So these are the ones that are trending, and you can kind of see the market cap, the volume, the average volume, the sales floor, which is like the lowest price that you can get in on a particular item. And you can kind of learn all about that by, again, Icy Tools. While you don't get all the data unless you're a paid subscriber, you do get quite a bit of data. So you can actually do at least some degree of due diligence before you buy an NFT by checking out these websites. So let me sort of kind of sum up at this point some main points. Let's go back to, yeah. So as I mentioned, these are the reasons that people buy NFTs. Now, from a perspective of, let's say, a buyer, right? The NFT is only considered as good as their creator. So when buying an NFT, you're basically investing in the person that made it, right? So oftentimes it's not just an NFT artwork, so not just one piece of artwork, but it's an NFT collection. And what the owner and what the founder does with that collection can massively impact its value. So for example, a founder can choose to partner with a gaming company. Let's say, for example, they were created various 3D models. They could partner with a gaming company and use those 3D models within a metaverse. And then, for example, that makes your NFTs more valuable after you purchase it. So that's something to look at. Another is the product. You want to see, the metadata of the NFT. So on OpenC itself, like I mentioned, you can take a look at properties, and then you can look at things like, the token smart contract data. You can check whether like what are the various different properties. So for example, how many of them are there, what is the scarcity, things like that. And that's pretty easy because OpenC actually pulls that data from the NFT and displays it. Another is the community. I mentioned this earlier. Community is everything when it comes to NFTs. So that includes your own community where you're selling the NFTs. Are you on Discord? Are you on Telegram? Do you have your own groups? Do you have an active group? Are you pushing this out on Twitter as much as you can? As your community grows and you have people that will start to either love your art or love what you stand for in some way, right? Whether that's AIDS awareness or any sort of social any sort of social good that you've aligned yourself with, that all comes from community, and your community are the people that are buying your artwork, right? So super important to maintain and grow that community. Another is, again, the project itself, right? So I mentioned this earlier. If you happen to as a project, you have plans to partner with another project that might make your project more valuable. So these are things that people think about. And again, invest only what you can lose. I mentioned this earlier. So these are some of the best known NFT marketplaces. That includes OpenC, Axie Marketplace, Lara Labs, NBA Top Shot if you happen to be into basketball, and finally Rarible, right? So just to sum up, since I'm approaching the end of this, and I'd love to take some questions as well. Selling an NFT is just like marketing any kind of artwork or product, right? You have to take time, you have to take the patience, and you have to develop the skill. The more you practice, the better you get. So because NFTs, are fairly new, and you can definitely put some up there. Just experiment to see where it goes, see if it's worth, if people are purchasing it, see if there's anything you can do to make it more valuable. And over time, you'll get better and better and better, and you'll start developing your reputation as an artist, right? And then you'll also start, becoming closer with the NFT community. So you might go to some of these NFT conferences, might meet some of the NFT collectors. These are all super useful. These are all super useful when you're trying to grow your community and grow the kind of people that want to buy your artwork. So again, focus on utility, focus on what are the additional things that you can provide. Is it, maybe it's a copy of the actual artwork, a physical copy of the actual artwork. Maybe it's some sort of a ticketing system. There can be any number of use cases and utility, but that's something people look at when they want to purchase NFTs. So with that, I'd like to open this up for questions, and let's just get started. So somebody's talking about Rarity, which is the first cricket NFT marketplace. Definitely, I don't know, I'm not familiar with Rarity. Guardian Link is a really great company. They've been doing a lot of interesting stuff in NFT space. So somebody has asked about, they have no knowledge of JavaScript. So knowledge of JavaScript is not necessary when it comes to NFTs. Another person, Varsha, has asked, can we mint the photographs taken by us as NFTs? Yes, absolutely, you can. So for example, a lot of photographers are actually using NFTs as a way to sell their artwork. So for example, you might use a thumbnail version of your image as sort of a cover art, but then when they click on it, they have a high resolution version. You can also sell the copyright alongside it. So for example, somebody buys that image, they have the right to use that image in a commercial or non-commercial way. That can all be specified as part of your NFT. Can you sell an NFT for free, like on Polygon? You can't sell an NFT for free because you can't sell anything for free. You can give things away. And yeah, certainly you can create an NFT and then you can trade amongst your friends for free. Oftentimes when it goes from one wallet to another, there will be gas fees involved. But since you mentioned Polygon's gas fees are actually really, really low. And so you're likely to save some money there. On the flip side, Polygon happens to have some reliability issues too. So good luck on actually being able to transfer that NFT as well. But overall, actually, it's a good platform. Polygon is. Let's see. How do you get to know about NFT conferences and communities? There are Telegram groups. Once you start going to some of these, you'll notice that there is basically like a group of the best way to describe it is NFT groupies, where these guys just basically hang out together and talk about NFTs all day, every day. And once you join one of these things and you become liked by them, oftentimes you'll be invited into the Telegram group. I'm members of a few Telegram groups where I hear about new conferences coming up. FYI, there's a conference in Goa, blockchain. It's called Web3 by the Sea. Blockchain conference that we're organizing, me, myself personally, and the company I work with, that is going to happen, I believe, sometime in August. And that should be a fairly large event in Goa. So definitely check out that as well. What's the minimum balance you require to start selling NFTs? There's really, the minimum I would say is a good way to start is somewhere around $300-400 just to be safe, because you want to make sure that you have all the fees that you need. Keep in mind that you won't actually have to mint the NFTs. So people who buy the NFTs and mint that NFT into their wallet, so they will be the ones paying the NFT fees. So let's now jump into some questions from Neerja.
Yes. So like I had mentioned at the very beginning, we have a very brief surprise for all of you. We have some rapid fire questions for Jason. So very, very quickly asking some of those questions. So what are the most valuable non-fungible tokens in the world?
Wow. I would definitely say it's probably Bored Ape Yacht Club, because I think the floor for that is like $250,000. Once you own one of those, though, it brings you into a very, very exclusive group. Bored Ape Yacht Club would be one. Another is CryptoPunks. Mario Nawfal, is a really big NFT influencer, CEO of NFT Technologies, which I'm part of. He has, I believe, a CryptoPunk or two, and that, of course, opens a lot of doors for him and for us as a company as well. So it's one of those things. I think having an NFT BAYC and a CryptoPunk, it puts you in some rarefied company.
Amazing. What are the most important use cases for non-fungible tokens, in your opinion?
That's a really good question. So there are practically unlimited use cases for a non-fungible token, right? Obviously, the most basic would be artwork, selling artwork, things like that. Foho Coin, which is a company I advise, they're using NFTs as a platform for selling real estate. So, for example, each real estate property that they sell is an NFT. And then you use a native coin, which is Foho Coin, to purchase this, assuming that in the jurisdiction you're able to legitimately purchase these NFTs. Another example, Reveal is heavily involved. A company called Reveal, which is another company I advise. They launched on KuCoin yesterday. They sold out their airdrop in 2.5 seconds, actually. They're also heavily involved in NFTs. Create Protocol, which is another company I advise, is also involved in putting out a lot of NFTs. They recently launched Sounds of Synesthesia. Most recently, there are companies like Ad Lunam, for example, which I'm part of as well. I was an investor in and co-founded, where basically those NFTs are used as a membership card to enable you to invest in IDOs. So companies that are launching, only if you have these NFTs are you able to actually invest in projects that are launching on that launchpad. So there's investment NFTs, there's artwork based NFTs, there's ticketing NFTs. The use cases are just endless.
Right. What are the opportunities for blockchain developers, especially in the non-fungible token scene?
Well, it depends, right? So you could clearly create a platform that, as a developer, you could create a platform that utilizes NFTs in some way, whereby, for example, recently spoke to a company yesterday, a couple of days ago, where what they were doing was they were creating NFTs as sort of digital twins for real world objects. So, for example, if a brand sells a pair of shoes, there's also a copy of those pair of shoes, a digital copy of those pair of shoes. Now, what can happen is, let's say Air Force One, you have an NFT that displays an Air Force One pair of shoes, which pretty well liked pair of shoes. Air Jordans is also, and once you have that NFT, you can actually trade it back and forth without actually redeeming it for the final shoe. Right. So you have that sort of market that can be created. So basically, blockchain programmers can create platforms that integrate NFTs and make some sort of novel use case for NFTs, they can use to actually get funded or launch a company around, basically.
There are two parts to this question. So what are the tools that can be built for non-fungible tokens to increase their adoption? And the second part of the same question is that what are the opportunities for a better non-fungible tech stack that we can look at?
It's a good question. The first thing is you can certainly build more NFT marketplaces. I know NFT Technologies invested in several NFT marketplaces. Basically, any place that sells NFTs and then goes out and promotes it helps build adoption, right? So Create Protocol that recently released Sounds of Synesthesia, which was done by a good friend of mine, actually. That once that's being promoted on Twitter, on social media, for example, more and more people are coming into the NFT world, right? Another thing is essentially any platform, like even, for example, Foho Coin. Foho Coin essentially takes what would be real estate investors, traditional real estate investors, and they makes them NFT investors. Sure, they're buying an NFT that represents real estate, but it's still an NFT. Right. So these are various sort of opportunities that to make NFT greater adopted. Basically, every time you create a platform that people can use and you market that platform, that can result in increased engagement with the NFT. The second part of your question with regard to how do we improve the tech stack? Well, the number of NFT standards are constantly evolving. So, for example, there's a few different specifications for NFTs already. out there. Each specification allows sort of slight changes on the kinds of features. Speaking with somebody, with Lawrence Hudson, who was a CTO at Ludum the other day, and he was mentioning that there are new NFT specifications that are coming out that actually allow you to do things like have dynamic NFTs, where an NFT can basically behave dynamically based off of data that you have. You can also come in and change an NFT. So, for example, you can use an NFT as a scorecard, where the user owns this NFT that mentions his score within a game, and that NFT itself constantly gets updated. So that score within that NFT, within that game, is being updated and being stored on that NFT. Normally, you wouldn't be able to do that because once you create an NFT, it's pretty much set in stone. But new NFT specifications are constantly coming out, some of which have newer features.
We're also very curious to know, what does your crypto portfolio looks like?
Yeah, so actually, that's a good question. So I typically don't buy a lot of NFTs. I've made a few NFTs. Like I find NFTs to be a highly risky sort of investment. My crypto portfolio consists mostly of Bitcoin by a massive amount. So almost, I would say about 80 or 90% of my liquid net worth is in Bitcoin. I actually am fairly conservative in that sense that I very rarely invest in altcoins either. Mostly to the extent that I have quite a bit of altcoins in my portfolio, it's because I advise companies, and as a part of being an advisor, oftentimes I'll get a piece of the company, and that includes several NFTs. So I have a lot of several native tokens rather. So I have a lot of tokens from various different companies, some of which have launched, some of them which have not launched. But when it comes to the majority of my portfolio is probably Bitcoin.
Thank you so much for answering all the rapid fire questions and also addressing all the questions so far. We incredibly learned a lot during the entire 3 days MasterCamp session. I've also shared the link of the Pro Blockchain Developer course MasterCamp that we're having, where Jason would be one of your masters. Thank you so much, Jason, for your time. Any last minute thoughts that you'd like to share to just wrap up the 3-day event?
Sure. So I just want people to sort of feel like it's not something that they really have to think about too much. Just create an NFT on Rarible, create an NFT on OpenC. It doesn't matter if your first several NFTs don't sell. Just get started, play around with it, maybe buy some other NFTs to flip if you want to, if that's something that you want to really look into, maybe do that. But just get started, and sooner or later you'll get better and better at it. And all these people, like everybody starts somewhere. Everybody starts, where they haven't done anything before. So just get started and see what happens.
Fantastic. I think there couldn't have been a better advice. So day 1, we got to know about non-fungible tokens. Day 2, we learned how to create those non-fungible tokens. And finally, we are at day 3, where we were looking at the buyer's perspective. We're also looking at how we can make and flip the non-fungible tokens in a very good way. How can we market them better? So I hope all of you had takeaways. We saw some of you participating really well, like Tane. All of you, we really appreciate your presence. Thanks so much, Jervis, Omkar, Abhinoy, Ayush, everyone for joining us. Harsh, Kunal, Manni, thanks a ton, everyone. And thank you so much, Jason, for the 3 days MasterCamp. It really proved to be highly beneficial for all of us. Thank you so much.